I'd like to welcome everybody to this webinar. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we start. We will keep the webinar to 30 minutes, about 20 minutes of showing you the iOS application for FieldSeeker GIS, and then some time at the end for questions. As we go along, if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, please send them in on the questions section in the GoToMeeting interface, and then we'll answer them at the end. We'll keep everybody on mute unless at the end there's some questions that you have that you'd like to just ask verbally. We can unmute you. So today's webinar is to talk about the iOS application for FieldSeeker GIS. And by iOS, I mean iPads and iPhones running iOS 8 or 9. So we'll just go into showing you some of the features of the iOS application. It's been available for about 6 months now, and we have a number of people using it in the field this season. I'm going to go ahead and log in and select my area and a truck. One of the features of the iOS application is OnTruck Inventory, and it's one of the first things that I'd like to show you. It says I'm not present in that zone because I'm here in Idaho and we're looking at data from Florida Keys. Just a brief tour of the interface on the iPhone. One of the nicest features is the simple, fast mapping. Moving around the map is very intuitive, just panning around, pinch, zoom in and out, all of the normal things you'd expect for mapping on an iPhone or an iPad. I can easily switch between base maps. There's a number of very high quality Esri base maps available while I'm connected. The app also supports offline data collection as well, and it will take the imagery with transportation labels offline. One of the reasons for having different base maps that you can select is that some of the base maps make your data easier to see over the top. Depending on what it is that you're looking for in the mobile application, higher contrast could be a good thing. Additionally, layers that could be available to turn on or off might include things such as recent landing counts, service requests, and trap results. And those layers are also time enabled. So let me get to an area here of the map where we have some data. And maybe I just want to see within the last week or so, I can go into a time control and just look at the last 7 days, and it'll filter that information down for me. Other layers that might be useful for people in the field might include things like aerial treatments. So if you have, as part of your operation, aerial treatments that are happening, being able to see the aerial treatment swaths on the map as you go back out, as the field crews go back out to do site visits and so on, can be helpful to see. Also where the trucks might have sprayed recently, so we could turn that on and take a look at that on the map. I'm going to get zoomed in here to an area. One of the layers we have displaying is a restricted properties area, and the application will give warnings to the technicians when they get within a certain distance of these places too. They can also tap on them and see what they are about. So some of these places that have bad dogs, or maybe a less than pleasant homeowner that doesn't want you entering on their property. So that's one of the features too of the iOS application. So we won't go through exhaustively every single tool here in the interface, but just want to point out that list of layers is something that's easily configurable as the system's getting set up. So if there's something else that you'd like to have people in the field have access to seeing on the map and turning on and off, that's easily done. Okay, I do want to go in and have a look at the OnTruck Inventory tools. When first using the application, this would be one of the first things to do would be to set up the products that you have available to you, either on your truck or vehicle or on your person, depending on how the field person is going out in the field. So perhaps you already have an inventory system for managing ordering and costing and first in, first out and all of that. Some people do, some people don't. But even if you do, a lot of times the rolling stock inventory, what's on the trucks, what's getting used in the field for treatments is not handled by a lot of those inventory systems. So FieldSeeker takes the inventory from when it goes onto the truck to when it's put out in the field with treatments, and also when product amounts are weighed, and takes care of all of that, and it's easily integratable with other back-end inventory systems. So it shows me what I've currently got on my truck, and if I take another product out of a warehouse, then I would record a transfer. So I'm going to transfer from one of the warehouses to my truck, pick the product, and the amount. I can also put in comments if there's any reason for that, and then that inventory is now available on my truck. And we'll see as we record treatment information that inventory automatically adjusts, and also that there's some safeguards built into the system so that treatments can only be recorded up to the amount of product that you actually have available on your vehicle. Okay, let's look at some of the basic data entry. And for this, we'll just go to record activity. And so inspection treatment is grouped under site visit along with larval samples. So we'll go in and look at that. There's also tools for recording landing counts and trap data, as well as the miscellaneous activities and time. There's a couple of other options here showing on the screen: field scouting and QA activity. Those are optional features that aren't available in the standard app, but that are available for certain particular workflows. We're going to go into site visit. And without, it'll list out the sites that are nearby in the map. So my typical workflow, I'll drive up to the place that I'm, or walk up to the place that I'm inspecting, go to this site visit, and the place that I'm at will be the top of the list. Now when I'm doing an inspection, I can take pictures. So the little paper clip is the picture attachment. So maybe there's something specific about this inspection. Maybe they're doing some construction or something else that I want to capture in a picture. I can do that. And then it's just filling out the typical information for inspection and treatment. So I can specify which habitats that I inspected. And I can do more than one. Also, if you're concerned about which containers maybe that you inspected, depending on your operation, you may inspect containers in a person's property. So you can specify that. Only the ones that are bold are required. So I can enter conditions and adult activity, weather information, rain gauge, actions taken, etc. And then when I enter my dip information, I put in the number of dips, number of positive dips, and then the actual counts and stages for larvae like you're used to recording. So we'll put in some information for average larvae and average pupae. And as you can see, this data entry is pretty much the standard kind of interface for when you're putting info in on an iPhone or an iPad. You know, it shows you what kind of data you can enter, If it's pick list, it just presents you with those options and you pick them. Also, in fields where there's text, you know, on an iPhone or an iPad, you can use the voice recognition to enter data, and that works pretty well. So there's all my inspection information, and I can record now. Maybe I took a larval sample, so I'm going to add a sample and put in the sample cup number. And also what genus identification might have been for the sample, and then submit that. So now it says that I have a sample recorded for this site visit. Then I can do the same for treatment. I can add a treatment. Which product did I use? And then if there's a default app rate set for that product, it'll figure out the area for me. I can also record equipment used for that and so on. There's also a calculator for figuring out area by quantity or quantity by area based on the rate to apply. Now if I try to put in something that's way out of range, it'll tell me I don't have that amount on my vehicle. If I didn't have a product app rate specified and I put something in that was out of label rate, it would warn me about that. But because there's a default app rate set, it will figure that for me. So we'll submit the treatment, and now it shows I've got one treatment, one sample. I could record more than one treatment as well on this property. So maybe I used a couple of briquettes in the fountain, and so I can submit that. So now I'm finished with this site visit. The little shortcut in the upper right-hand corner is for proposed treatment area. So depending on the field site inspection that you're doing, maybe you're inspecting a larger, field or pasture or wetland area or whatever. If you are able to do the treatments while you're there, you just record them while you're there. If you need to schedule to have someone come back with a truck or even an aerial application, you can go to proposed treatment area, and you have the option to either select an existing spray block and say that it needs to be treated, or draw in a partial area and say that that area needs to be treated. And so if I draw in a partial area, I'll just show this. We can specify that this whole area needs to be treated with the truck. Go to the info for that. Put in a description of the spray area, when it's due, or when you want to have it done, maybe tomorrow. High priority with the truck. And then that information is immediately available to others in the office, mission planners, supervisors, to review and do mission planning for either night spraying or for aerial application. So I'll submit that site visit. Oops, I got an error. That's not supposed to happen on a demo. We'll go ahead and try saving it again. So if I try to go back to the main screen, it'll tell me that I'll lose my data. So all right, I've got my proposed treatment area and the site visit. I'll look briefly at a couple of the other activities, recording that you set or retrieve traps. Notice that when that list comes up, it's just a list of trap sites. So it won't bring up everything everywhere where I've done work, just the trap locations. To specify what kind of trap, and you can put in weather information as well. Also information about the condition of the trap, if that's applicable, and then whether you set or retrieved it. You can also record landing counts while you're doing the traps. So once that information is recorded, then it's available immediately on the lab tools to enter in the species counts. So we'll record the trap info. And I'd like to look at the miscellaneous activities in time as well. There may be things that you record that don't kind of fit into the other categories, things like maintenance work or trail maintenance or brush clearing, those kinds of things, and there is a way to record that as well. Apologize for the delay in processing here. I'm filling in for the normal presenter, Ryan Pearson, who you might have been expecting. And so kind of got caught flat-footed here and didn't run through all of these scenarios ahead of time with my test system. So still getting that error, so I'm going to cancel back to the screen. I want to look at the activities in time just to show you that. So maybe I want to record trail maintenance or picking up tires or picking up fish or whatever it is. That information can be recorded. We can also add additional user-defined fields, which I've done here with the linear feet for the trail maintenance and equipment used and any comments. And that information then is available for reports as well. So just a miscellaneous. Okay. I'd like to look at some of the search tools too. One of the ways that the search tool can be used is to present the field tech with a work list. So if I wanted to pick everything in a particular zone that needed some action, then I could press search and it'll bring up a list of everything from nearest to farthest away where some action is required. And so there is a notion of required action or of scheduling all of my sites in a zone as I visit them, whether I can go straight to entering my information like site visits, landing counts, etc. Or I can just zoom to the location. And from the location pop-up, I can get additional information about that site. All right, I'm going to look at back in OnTruck Inventory. We should see a change there in the back-to-back because we did a treatment. So it's down to 2.75 gallons. One of the tools that I didn't show before was to reconcile. So at the end of the day or end of the week, when I'm doing actual weights and counts, then I can enter that information here in the system as well. So if nothing has changed, I don't have to make any entries. If there's some difference between what the system says that I have and what I measure that I have, I can put that in, as well as some explanation in comments if that's applicable. And then when I submit that, it will adjust the inventory for me automatically, and that's immediately available for everyone using the system. Transfers can also be recorded between vehicles, or also if I am doing reconciliations and I make some mistake, then that'll show up on reports on the back end. might have noticed in the lower right there's a little badge icon there with the 1. As new service requests come into the system, those are immediately available to me. So when I tap on that, it'll show pending service requests and then the priority. And so it shows that I have a high priority service request that I haven't accepted yet. I can tap on that and see what the details are. So it says that I've got a 10 a.m. appointment. I can go ahead and accept that, and then it'll go into my accepted list. Oops, I closed it out, so I want to enter more information on it. When I'm inside of a service request, maybe I'm getting a whole bunch of requests in the same area. I can go and do a site visit for the service request, and then it'll let me do my inspection treatment information. Or I can just go in and enter additional field notes as well. Maybe I talk to the homeowner and provide information. If that's all that was required for that request, then I could go ahead and close it out. As I close requests in the field, those requests then are reviewable by supervisors. So if people want to make sure that the request is actually finished, that can happen too. You can also take pictures on service requests as well, so there's an attachments option there. I've shown the ones that are field rectified so that I could look at additional details for some of these existing requests. If I have a lot of requests in my pending or accepted list, I can select multiple ones at the same time and then do an action on them. So some operations are driven by service requests coming in from the field. Others not so much, but there are fully functional service request tools in the app. And now that I've completed that request, then that badge icon with the 1 goes away, and I know that I'm caught up on my service requests. Okay, I can also create new locations. So some folks have most of their locations already mapped in, but even if you do not, you can create them with GPS by drawing on the screen. I'm going to turn on the imagery again, and then just make sure that I've got my sites turned on here. Okay, so if I wanted to create a new location, that's easily done. I'll draw in a polygon, and I could use GPS if I had it. The little GPS button at the top would use my current GPS location, or I can just draw it in and then enter the info for it. Locations also can have attachments. So it's put in the zone, island, next inspection date. I can specify the type of site that it is. And these pick lists can all be modified, of course. And also whether it's a tidal source or rain source. This is an example of some user-defined fields. So we give you, kind of the basic things for describing the location, address, access description like gate codes, things like that. Doesn't like the word gate, that's interesting. And then I can also take pictures. So we'll submit that, save that site, and then it's a permanent site for me. There's also capabilities here to draw in truck spray areas or barrier spray areas. And when I choose that, I can select an existing spray route and record that it was treated, or draw in a partial area. Now we do also have software that will record directly from sprayers like the Clark SmartFlow, London Fogger, Curtis Dynafog, and B&G Phoenix. But you're also able to use these tools if you don't have sprayers that output data that can be recorded to work with spray routes and record your treatment details. So if I select an existing spray route, it'll come up with a list of those that are nearby. I can just pick one and then put in the details of the sprayer that I used, which product, total amount of time spent, and then it'll figure out my spray miles and acres treated. I can put in the flow rate and it'll figure out the total volume. So there is a way to record truck spraying even if you don't have the sprayers that output data. Getting a message about my server connection, so apologize for that. Okay, so we've covered quite a few of the options here in the mobile application. There are more things we could show you, but we promised we'd keep the webinar to about 30 minutes. I've already gone a couple of minutes over what I told you I would. So I'm going to look at the questions and see if there are any questions that have come in. If you haven't already asked them, please send them through. Let's see if there's any listed here. I do have just a couple questions for you while we're waiting for anyone else to ask. I'll just ask you a poll here about your current data collection platform in the field. So if you take just a second and answer that, let us know what you're using at the moment. Okay, looks like about half of you have voted. Windows Mobile and Windows tablets, and then still a lot of paper. And that's not surprising. Even when you have a data collection system, a lot of times people are entering info on paper as well. But maybe you can see some ways that this could give you some options for collecting that data. Some of you are already using iPhones or iPads. Okay, so it looks like most of you voted on that. Appreciate your input on that one. And then just one other poll, similar, but what would you like to use or what do you plan to use in the future? And so if you wouldn't mind, take a minute to answer that one. Okay, so about half of you have voted. A lot of people planning to use iPhones or iPads. About 25% would like to use Windows tablets. I will mention that that is an option in our current software lineup to use Windows tablets as well, either for truck data collection or for field collection. So this webinar was focusing on the iOS app, but there are Windows options available too. And then there was also some interested in Android, and some mentioned other, and maybe that's still Windows Mobile. Okay, appreciate the input on that. All right, a couple questions here. Look like they have come in. Does this have the ability to detect ULV on or off? The iOS application does not. So what I showed was just drawing in areas of, or using spray blocks, you know, in the case where you don't have sprayers that output data. But if you do have sprayers that output data, like I mentioned, the SmartFlow, London Fog, or Curtis, and B&G Phoenix, we do have ULV data collection software that does record location, speed, direction, and flow rate, as well as sprayer on and off. That is not available on the iPhone or iPad, at least not currently. It's available on Windows or Windows tablet. One of the challenges is just that those sprayers that output data still use a serial port connection, and the iOS devices don't have one of those built in. There are some adapter cables that can be bought, but it's not just a plug and play. There's a software component to that too. So the short answer is not this software, but we do have that solution to detect that, yes. Okay, another question, can PDF labels, MSDS forms be viewed through the app? No, not through the app, but we've had other customers / users that use that put that on the phones or on the iPads, because you have the ability to use any app that's in the App Store. You could use Google Drive. You could have that on a website. There's a lot of ways that information can be delivered without having to have it in the app. Okay, looks like there's a few more questions. Is data required to run this program is one of the questions. No, if you have current data in another system, then it can be migrated in or converted and used, whether that's just historical data, historical treatment sites, operational zones, etc. But if you don't have any data, no, you can start from scratch and build that system as you go, create your own locations and start entering your work. As far as the GIS data, same thing goes there. If you have GIS data that you'd want to use, or there's some available from the county or from the cities or whatever, then it can be incorporated, can be used. But if not, you don't need it. Those base maps are available, and they're just nice visual reference, even if you don't have any GIS data. Okay, another question, are there any plans to have Sentinel run on iOS at some point? And that's a good question, because I know some of you on the call are using Sentinel. No, there's not. Reason for that, Sentinel uses ArcPad. ArcPad has no plans to run on iOS. What we're trying to get to, though, is have the front end for either Sentinel or FieldSeeker be your choice of platform. So if you wanted to use a Windows tablet, you'd be able to do it. If you want to use iOS, you'd be able to do that. So that is what we're working toward. So I guess that's a yes and no answer there for Caitlin. Currently, Sentinel runs on Windows tablets or Windows mobile devices. And this iOS application uses web services, but it can be disconnected editing too. So there is a possibility it could be the front end for Sentinel with some data processing. Another question, are you working on an Android platform? No, currently we're not working on an Android platform, but that is one of the reasons we asked the poll questions about your interest in other platforms. We realize that iOS is only one of the choices. Again, what we would like to get to is your choice of platform, whether that's Windows, tablet, iOS, or Android. This was our first offering in smartphone and consumer tablet space, the iOS application. So we'll be evaluating cross-platform solutions as we move forward. Okay. The question is, Wi-Fi required in order to operate? No, it's not. Everything I showed today was connected, so using cellular. But I do have the option to download data and go offline. So if I go offline, okay, I guess I need to download map areas first. So when I go to download data, I can choose which areas that I want to go offline and download that, and then I'll be able to collect everything, even if I don't have a connection. So you do have to have a device that has GPS in it, and most iPhones do. iPads and iPad minis only do if you have the iPad hardware that is cellular capable. So even if you don't have a cell plan, you do have to have the iPad that has the cell capability, because that's the one that has the GPS in it. Okay, so it looks like we answered all the questions that came in on the question forum. We certainly appreciate your time attending. There will be a couple of exit questions when we close the session, and I think it'll probably ask if you'd like a follow-up or more information. Please avail yourself of that. And okay, it looks like there was one final question. Who hosts the data? Do we need our own servers? And so the back-end data can be on your system, on your server, or it can be hosted in ArcGIS Online or cloud platform. It can also be, the server could be on an Amazon EC2 instance. So really it supports whatever you would like it to be. And then a follow-up question on that, for this, do we need ArcGIS server? The FieldSeeker iOS app does rely on web services published by ArcGIS server. So yes, there would need to be a server license involved somewhere in order to provide those services. We do have some frequently asked questions documents too that we can make available that kind of cover that in more detail than I can answer here on the call. Okay. Another question is, do we plan to have any other sessions to introduce this app? This session will be recorded, and we also will have additional webinars coming up on other parts of the FieldSeeker system. But this webinar will be recorded and available shortly. Okay, again, I thank everyone for attending and for your questions and interaction. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I think that when you close the session, you'll see our emails. If not, our company phone number is there. Contact myself or Ryan Pearson. Okay, thank you.